What's up, everybody? This is Nick from Tenacity.ai with my co-host Jason, and you're listening to the Cloud Cost Optimization Podcast. Today's topic, we're going to talk about one of the recurring themes that we hear in conversations with customers, clients, consulting and advisory, talking to other organizations about cloud spending and how they're managing their cloud spending. And in fact, I would say there's a split out there amongst those who are tackling it with a rich set of tools and organizationally kind of have their arms around the fact that there is a problem and there's a way to address it, and those which are stuck at a point that's really not technical at all. And that's kind of the politicization of cloud inside of organizations. It's an accountability issue. It's an issue, especially at large volume of spend, where some of the structures inside of the organization or some of the tools that would have helped early on haven't necessarily been implemented because there's resistance from a really honestly a political perspective inside of those organizations. So I guess first to start with kind of laying out this problem is Jason, we've been in these conversations, we've seen some startling amounts of spend that really haven't gotten under control. And there's this recurring theme. Can you kind of frame up, what's happening inside of these organizations? What's the piece that they're missing that they get hung up? It's not even a technical point. It's an internal organizational point. What's going on?
Well, I think I would say that cloud has only provided visibility into problems that have always existed. Internal bureaucratic things. I mean, if you just think about when we used to have to buy all of our own equipment and put them in data centers, right? And there was a ton of waste in there, and there were decisions made to just, this business unit, they're on their own, they're going to take it over here, and they're going to, then you've got all this equipment allocated to a different business unit. These are like kind of similar issues that are just happening in the cloud, where you have, bureaucratic reasons why decisions were made, internal politics, why decisions were made. And as a result, you end up having waste. I don't think I ever met a company that didn't have a ton of waste when they were buying their internal IT infrastructure, right? And those problems just are visibility into those problems with the cloud is the reason why they're coming up, because now it's an operating expense. It's not a capital expenditure. So there's different reasons why that's an issue. And also the visibility that you can get into each individual department and, down to the resource level at what you're spending has just given companies the data and we're seeing as a result of it, some of the problems that have always existed between the internal politics, between what's considered a cost center in a lot of organizations, IT, and the rest of the business, which thinks of themselves as revenue generating, right? IT has been thought of as a cost center for how many years, Nick? I mean, for a long time. It's really just in tech. Yeah, all of your career. So, and it's still thought of as a cost center, right? In a lot of organizations, even the ones that you wouldn't think, they do manufacturing. And they think of their IT departments as cost centers. You ask them, okay, what happens if everything goes down in IT? Oh, well, we stop making money. How are they a cost center then? It just doesn't make any sense. But if you have that mindset in these organizations where IT is thought of as a cost center, and so there's always this infighting, you create a situation in which politics that just it's a breeding ground for political infighting within organizations. And so with cloud, there's light shed on it, operating expenditures, and as well as, how much spend has gone in there since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's led to this.
Yes, I agree with all of that. And I think what's interesting to me is there's this theme of, yes, the cost center, the classic cost center, in not having yet developed the internal accountability. And so I think that is at the root of kind of the political internal problem, is that not being able to tie out those costs accurately, should say. Sometimes they can tie out costs and say, hey, these are your accounts and you're spending here. And it can still get into kind of a political finger pointing battle. But not being able to really tie those costs out to the various parts of the organization and really understand who's accountable for cloud spending, the management of, or the optimization of, is that an IT problem when it's tied out to a revenue unit, or is that the revenue unit's issue? Is there engineering directly tied to that part of the business, or is engineering centralized? There's all these issues. And when we ask organizations, or when we're going into advise, or we're going into consult, and we ask these organizations, we ask individuals, not the organization, but we ask individuals, what sorts of things are you trying to do about it? Almost every one of the solutions that they're trying to achieve and failing at is some sort of organizational restructuring. And what I say that is not some massive like corporate restructuring, but we're trying to form an internal CCOE, or we're trying to adopt FinOps. In part of the problem is it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, because they don't yet know why they understand they need that, but they don't yet have the ability for an organization like that to function, because they can't yet decide who's accountable for what. So, we've seen in those conversations, the way that you change that is actually to gain visibility into what's going on in the cloud spending and start to tie out accountability, so that now you can bring together a team that understands what they're accountable for as a cloud center of excellence, or as, as a FinOps team, or as someone who's evangelizing internally what needs to be done, versus in what they're accountable to, versus what the rest of the business is accountable to, and can start making some of those decisions, so that once you decide on that accountability, then who's going to be doing or making the decisions around spending and optimization. So I think that, yes, there is some organizational changes, but first you have to get that visibility. I mean, I hate to say that you have to buy a tool to solve the problem, but that is one of the first things you have to do, is actually either get in and start building the dashboards in AWS, which you can do. There are labs on that. Or you have to find a tool that actually supports the initiative.
Yeah, you don't have to get a tool. You don't have to procure a tool. You can go get all this yourself. But yeah, visibility, understanding what you have and why you have it, is the most important step in all of this, because, you can't have a solid commitment strategy if you don't know that information, right? Because why would I want to buy like a reserved instance or savings plan on compute I don't need? Right? It doesn't make any sense. And just understanding what you have and why you have it, and then making sure that you have a solid documentation strategy, tagging strategy, whatever it may be, for where those resources lie, is the first step in this problem. But is the first step once you've assigned accountability, because it's like you got to have that data to be able to understand who should own what, right? Because here's the thing: if X business unit, whatever business unit is using 90% of all of my IT infrastructure, and I have 7 business units, that's a far different problem than those 7 business units using an equal amount of the spend in the cloud. So understanding what you have, why you have it, and who owns it is the first step to making sure that you understand where you should be placing the accountability.
Well, I agree. And you're touching on an important topic here, because we also, yes, we've been engineers. We understand what it's like to be held accountable to something that you don't really have control over, right? That's comes with the job. It comes with the territory. But we also evangelize a lot that sometimes it's not about cutting costs. Sometimes it's about understanding costs. And so if one of those 7 revenue units, or if that one that's using 90% of the infrastructure is growing at 10 times a year or something outrageous, they should not be worried about cloud spending. Someone else needs to worry about that while they continue to go grab that revenue and accelerate that growth and do something outstanding. But that's the thing you have to get your arms around, is getting visibility into that of, oh, wait, I can tie all of this cloud spending to the thing that's outrageously successful. That's an entirely different conversation. It's entirely different organizational change than oh my gosh, we have all these pressures that we need to get this under control because of global economic pressures and business pressures and not wanting to, lay off key staff, et cetera. Those are two different things. Get visibility first in order to figure that part out.
Yeah. I mean, and if there's a, final thought or at least one of the final thoughts, it says adding the context to that information is key, right? Because if you just look at cutting spend or stopping spend in the cloud without looking to the context of why your spend is growing, a la in your situation, this business is blowing out revenue, then you're gonna potentially make decisions that are impactful to the business in a negative way.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good note to end it on. So thanks, folks. Appreciate you tuning into the show. Stay tuned for the next episode dropping soon. Thanks so much.